Good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unacademy. This is Success Sampath interacting with you. Do you want to become IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS? Ladies and gentlemen, we Unacademy, with top educators of India and meticulously designed quality content, we have been waiting for you, waiting to shape you especially so that you become officer or leader in your own capacity. Once you enroll yourself in an academy, ladies and gentlemen, you might be aware, right? You will undergo a great learning experience. Yes, an academy, India's largest and the best online education platform. What are all the benefits you are likely to, get once you enroll yourself in an academy? Of course, one second. Yes, you got daily live classes. You can chat with your educator, and you can also engage in all-round discussions, and you can also ask all your genuine doubts and participate in the answer polls. All these things you can do when the session's going on. You got structured courses here, you might be aware. All our courses completely structured or based on the pattern of UPSC Civil Service Examination. When it comes to UPSC Civil Service Examination module, and also the syllabus of recommended by UPSC, you might be aware, so that we ensure you never get deviated from the expected framework. Ladies and gentlemen, we are keep on emphasizing one particular point. Of course, it's not knowing the stuff, knowing to deliver the stuff, because well, delivery matters. It's not what you deliver, rather how do you deliver. Yes, when that is the situation, that we got a mechanism to evaluate your preparation at various stages by conducting regular mock tests and quiz programs, and to get a detailed analysis based on your performance. Come to know, that you come to know where you are strong, where you are weak, and also that how much time you took in solving a particular question. You come to know, and you got unlimited access once you enroll yourself, that in an academy, more than million videos, that you can access, and whatever may be your electronic device, whether it is mobile phone, laptop, even desktop, you can learn from anywhere, anytime, irrespective of that your electronic device, in usage. That's genuine. And for that, what you have to do, please download an academy learning app immediately, whether it is Android or iOS. Ladies and gentlemen, know that once you download, that you are likely to encounter all those benefits. Who is this interacting with you? Of course, this is Success Sampath from Chennai, with unique experience, that I've got exposed to the fields of engineering, management, and legal education. With 25 years of experience in the field of coaching, especially shaping the careers of civil service aspirants, you might be aware. With my humble team, I could witness 250 plus results as IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS. All my kids are working in different parts of India, and some of them in abroad as well. Right? You can also ask me another question. What's your vision, sir? That's going to be your question, ladies and gentlemen, to provide career solution, especially by enabling youths of India to begin with, later to embrace the global community. Yes, fortunately, this particular vision of mine is completely in alignment with an academy's vision. We are working together, if you, so that you realize your dream goal. Ladies and gentlemen, you can also reach me through Telegram channel, or even that Unacademy YouTube channel. Of course, using my ID, say Success Sampath or Sampath Vengadam. Yes, it's not only me. As I told you, right, as a team, more than 100 plus top educators of India, that waiting on the path, that Unacademy shape you so that you realize your dream goal. Under UPSC Civil Service Examination, ladies and gentlemen, we've got two major programs. One is Plus program, another one is Iconic. What is Plus program? You got live classes, test series, unlimited practice sessions, and structured schedule mechanism. Ladies and gentlemen, whether it is that a 1 month course or 36 months, of course 3 years course, according to your time availability and budget, you can choose the program. Choose what suits you. Of course, that it's not only for general studies, that are subject, specific module, or prelims cum mains program, or even optional subject. You got, it is in that way, that for both optional subject and, subject specific module and prelims cum mains, we support you, ladies and gentlemen. Please use my, say, referral code, say, success, to avoid 10% discount. Choose what suits you, that let me emphasize that particular point. Of course, then more than that plus program, we strongly recommend Iconic program. What is that Iconic program? It has got unique feature. What is that? You will be allotted a personal coach, a mentor, understand your nature and to take care of your needs and to suggest study plan accordingly. And you will be trained in terms of answer writing practices on an everyday basis. Ladies and gentlemen, when that is the scenario, of course, that here too you got, that a variety of, the programs you can enroll according to your convenience, that whether it is 12 months or 36 months, whether it is, that GS prelims come mains or, that optional, plus GS, please use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, it is going to be, the great things will take time. This empire building process, right? That you choose program accordingly, right? For all the popular optional subjects, that we extend our support on the part of, Unacademy platform, as I told you, right? From 1 month to 36 months. From, of course, according to your, the budget you choose, please use my referral code, say success, to avoid maximum 10% discount, right? Ladies and gentlemen, that's fantastic. Thanks for your passions. Of course, this is right time. Let me take you to the very purpose and direction of, the today's interaction, right? And hope you would have watched already, a lot of videos on the part of, Unacademy, of course, right? Whether it is, grand strategy to score 450 plus, part of sociology or basic concepts or perspectives or various thinkers of, sociology paper 1 and paper 2, and also, that some of the units we discussed already. You would have already watched all those, that videos, I believe. Even on the part of, Unacademy, by downloading app also you can watch, that a lot of videos available there. Of course, apart from that, for essays, various videos available, ladies and gentlemen, and also for international relations. Please go through all those things, that I hope, that I can enrich your, that value, that in terms of your preparation, prism. Ladies and gentlemen, coming back to, the today's interaction, of course, sociology. You know very well this particular subject matter, highly scoring, very popular. I think I'm qualified enough. I could, score fantastic marks. Not even me. My kids, that could score fantastic. And that's why, their offices, you might be aware. And it has got its own advantage, right? Once you go for sociology with that understanding, the subject matter, the basic concepts, the keywords, the perspectives, the objectivity, value neutrality, byproducts of this sociology, you are capable of seeing, two sides of a single coin. Meaning is that you understand the truth. You never take sides. You are never biased. That is a byproduct of this subject matter. Sociology is all about, that study about society or science of society. The society is nothing but system or network of social relationship more than people. Right, that you make study over society in terms of, systematic study, scientific study, integrated study. That is why the report you arrive at, sociologists arrive at, is very precise, very accurate. That's why most of, other people, of course, whether, civil society or planners or legislators, international organization, regional organization, judiciary, the media, everybody waiting for this report. Why? The preciseness, objectivity, value neutrality. Otherwise you talk about accuracy. And why it is popular, if you ask me that particular question, of course you are in touch with that particular subject matter. You are part of this society. The society is in you. I'm not going to teach you anything new in the name of sociology, because you know everything about, the subject matter called, because you are in this society. You know what is marriage, what is family, what are overall, your relatives. Of course, we call kinship. Your various institutions you got exposed in your lifetime. Maybe that we call social institutions. Of course, educational institution, economic institution, political institution, religious institution. Your identity, maybe caste based, gender based, maybe you are age centric, maybe you are race based, ethnicity based, why not nationality based. That's what called social stratification. People are stratified based on a particular criteria, hierarchy, privileges, disprivileges. We discussed at length in terms of, social stratification and caste system units. You please watch those videos. Otherwise, the society is not static. It is keep on changing. As Karl Marx put it, that the change is permanent, right? That particular change, the today's topic linked with that, the change in society, culturally, structurally, functionally. Because you got two major perspectives in sociology. When you talk about, sociology, the structural functionalism school of thought and conflict school of thought, major perspectives. But another perspective, of course, we call symbolic interactionism, which is said to be the future of, the very subject matter called sociology. Is that way. The various perspectives, we discussed, please watch those videos also. You will come to know, because structural functionalism school looks at society as if a system which has got order, which has got stability. Anything which promotes that order is called functional to that particular society. Anything that weakens that already existing social order could be called as, dysfunctional to that particular society. Society is a system which has got order, stability, cohesion, equilibrium, solidarity, integration, whatever you call, different manifestations of the same spirit. But whereas you got another perspective, of course, you call, the conflict school of that, that of course founder, Karl Marx, the change is permanent. The change by revolution, the change which is radical. Why the revolution? Because of the, the inherent discontent, inherent contradictions on the part of the society. That's pushing the people to the revolution. Why? People come to know, especially the haves exploiting the have-nots. That's why he gone to the extent of saying, you might be aware, the history of hitherto all existing societies full of struggle between haves and have-nots. Well, all those things. Let us judge. We are talking about, of course, the change. Of course, that the change is is permanent according to conflict school of that. Today's topic linked with that, especially, it is belonging to Paper-2. The change, social change in India. We're going to touch that change maybe by so many ways, but today's contention, bone of contention, it's going to be centered around how Constitution of India, the law of India, laws, that may be responsible for bringing social change, the change in society, the change in terms of cultural way of life, style of life, maybe the change in terms of structural, changing the institutions, how the changes in marriage, family, your relationship, of course, education institution, economic institution, political institution, structural change, the change in terms of institution. Or, the functional change. You might be aware, how the joint family system, was worked in the past, that has worked in the past, how now got it reduced to mere family, you might be aware. Most of the vital functions, once part of, joint family, completely taken over by the rest of the institutions in society. Otherwise, once upon a time, how religion brought people together, responsible for, that bringing social order, stability. The very religion today, the functionality has gone to the extent of, that separating people apart. The change in functionality on the part of social institutions. Of course, this is what put together the social change, the change in society in terms of structure, in terms of culture, in terms of function. But the change in Indian society, of course, it's called community. The change in India, how the constitution is responsible for change in India, culturally, structurally, functionally, how the laws, various laws, responsible for change in Indian society, culturally, structurally, functionally. This is what our topic. Of course, coming back to that, the very introduction of sociology might be, very popular. Why? It's not only, that the subject matter which you are very familiar, you are living, it is part of yours, your personality. Because of sociology, you are capable of getting fantastic score in other subjects too, because you are general studies. The ethics, the case studies, otherwise called, social issues on the part of the society. But you're going to provide ethical solution. The key words completely supplied from the world of sociology. Even the society portion on the part of Paper-1 general studies, the essay, out of, that 8 domains, that when you take into account all the previous years' topics of essays, one domain completely belonging to this subject matter called sociology. And also when you go to interview, of course, that out of 275 marks, 150 centered around, that your current affairs, and beyond that, the decision you arrive at, when you are asked question, that will be well balanced. Why? Because you travel through, the various perspectives of sociology. Multitasking, parallel processing. Let me put this way. Otherwise, that will transform your personality. Of course, I'm selling subject matter sociology. I believe I benefited. Forget about that. I benefited out of it. You can. My kids benefited. You too can benefit out of this subject matter. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. Of course, that. And not only that, what is social control? The social change in India. Of course, I gave you brief. That the very constitution, law, that in what way, that we are responsible for change in the Indian society, of course, called community, and various sociologists, that reflection. Today's, that interaction is going to be brief, that because, it is that way. I understand, that I don't want to take much time of yours. I understand your Diwali festival. I understand. But at the same time, it's not, that escaping from, responsibility. Rights and duties go together. Your freedom. You are not supposed to enjoy your freedom without discharging your duty. Hope you understand that. They go together. Rights and duties go together. Again, it is part of your fundamental right. Of course, that we talk about part of our constitution. Various sociologists, opinion when it comes to how the law, the constitution is bringing, that social change in India. We are going to discuss finally the resources to be, consulted. Of course, right? Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you, of course, that sociology, which is, the very popular, highly scoring. It has got other advantages, benefits, very familiar, that, and apart from that, that changes your personality. Ladies and gentlemen, it is right time. Let me take you to the very subject matter. What is social control? Because, constitution or law, what do you call the formal mechanism of social control? Are you aware what is social control? Ladies and gentlemen, why you want to control? First of all, control, social control is nothing but controlling society or regulating the behavior of society. Why do you want to control? First of all, who are you to control? What are the parameters that you are going to employ while regulating or controlling the society? Who gave you authority otherwise? There are a lot of questions. What if you'll get, what is the byproduct the moment you go for regulating or controlling society? So what if you don't control? So what if you don't regularize? Social control is otherwise called, a mechanism for bringing social order. If you don't control, what will happen? Even as an individual, what is the role of, self-discipline? Discipline, that matters, of course. But of course, there may be some deviations when it comes to your personal, but more or less, you have to see in the big context, big picture. Maybe, that it can't be, that you evaluated on per second basis, per hour basis, right? You have to see in the whole picture. End justifies means. Of course, you got your own justifications. That end, what I'm talking about, the core values, values of, the very living values of society without compromising the value system of society. It's a mechanism. Social control is a mechanism to bring social order. Then only there is peace in the society. Otherwise, if there is no peace, no economic development. Peace is a prerequisite for prosperity, you might be able. So that social control mechanism, what we are talking about, you can regulate, you can control the society either in formal way or that in formal way or informal way. Informal way. In formal way, that you got, that law, constitution, IPC, CRPC, what you're talking about, something which is attached with modern day, you are living, of course, that industrial society, urban society. But whereas, the closed society, rigid society, traditional agrarian society, primitive society, if you talk about, you got informal mechanism where they've got, that you would have heard about terms like, that folkways, mores, custom, tradition. They're informal way. What is folkways? Hi, folks. Hi, people. Habitual way of doing things. Folkways. Even if you don't do that, that you won't be punished for that. Be nice if you touch the feet of elders to get the blessings. If you don't do that, your parents or elders cannot punish you. Habitual way of doing things. Maybe it is part of custom or tradition to respect elders. You get the blessings to touch their feet. But elders should be elders. You got responsibility also. Right? It's that way we are talking about. The folkways, habitual way of doing things. Even if you don't, do that, it will not invite, that severe punishment. But you got another term called mores. The mores, when you say, that you incorporate a right and wrong notion on the part of folkways. Say, for example, that if there is a village, of course, here it is village sarpanch sitting here. If you don't respect village sarpanch, it is almost, that equivalent to, that disrespecting the whole village council, whole village. Maybe your habit, you don't respect anybody. Maybe you want, that you are unruly, maybe, I don't know, disobedient to the core. But that your personal whims and fancies, should not go against the custom of that particular village, in the informal setup, the rural areas. So the mores, according to the mores, that it is wrong to not, that respect the village sarpanch or the whole village council, that will get offended because of that. When you incorporate right and wrong notion on the part of folkways, it becomes mores. Got the point. But violation of morals will invite severe punishments. You might be aware. So that when village council has got its own, that the judgment. See, they decide. Oh, this straight jacket is fine. Of course, see how the girl is, that free from, she has been restricted. Otherwise, the cop panchayat or kangaroo courts you call, they ban girls, that from wearing jeans. They decide, what should be done. That maybe, for a small society, they may be custom bound, tradition bound society. It's, that sometimes, that people with, the liberal mindset, it may not work out. They tend to violate, they tend to deviate from that. Of course, then they have to enjoy the wrath. Otherwise, the punishment from, village council, you might be aware, whether it is cop panchayat or kangaroo court. It's not, that officially given, mandate, but cop panchayat, kangaroo court we are talking about. Maybe the caste leaders, dominant caste leaders of that particular locality come together. That way we are talking about. So whatever may be, that the behavior, what do you mean by, that controlling or regulating the society? Regulating or controlling the behavior of the society. As an individual, you got discipline. If you don't have discipline, if you're not properly regulated, definitely it will have its own impact on your personality. If you say this is what my character, it is outcome of your socialization. Like mother, like daughter. Birds of the same feather flock together, we say. You are the byproduct of your socialization. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about that. There is a saying, எந்த குழந்தையும் நல்ல குழந்தைதான் இந்த மண்ணில் பிறக்கையிலே பின்பு நல்லவராவதும் தீயவராவதும் அன்னை வளர்ப்பினிலே. Of course, that your parental socialization, the brought up what I'm talking about, the various agents, of course, charity begins at home. That's family, your peer group, your educational institution, your working environment, till today's, that social network, the media, celluloid world, everything. You've got their own share in regulating your behavior in terms of institutionalization, and you take in internalization, put together your character, inculcation of the value system in you, your personality. If you say this is what my personality, it is a byproduct of socialization brought up. Of course, that you are regulated. That's why, that you are composed. Then only there is, you don't find cultural shock the moment you interact with other members of the society. When there is a peace in the family, there will be peace in the, of course, it is right time to recall Dr. Kalam, of course. Where there is righteousness on the part of, that, you might be aware, there will be beauty in the character. There is righteousness on the part of an individual. That there will be, beauty in the character. When there is beauty in the character, there will be harmony in the home. When there is harmony in the home, there will be order in the nation. And there is order in the nation, there will be peace in the world. You just see how an individual's righteousness, of course, dharma, linked with global peace. None other than Dr. Kalam. You understand that way. So the peace in the family is getting reflected in the peace in the world. It is, of course, we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, so you have to regulate the behavior of the society. How that starts from individual. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. That's what Mahatma Gandhi put it. It is not expecting others to change. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. The change starts at home. Change begins at home. As an individual, of course, as the moment you regulate your behavior, there is a personality, a character in you. Of course, you become role model. The truth in you, honesty in you, integrity in you. You are source of inspiration for so many people. Of course, we are talking about. It is that way when all individuals combine together. That, of course, social groups, social institutions, the communities. So regulating the behavior of the society in the sense, it may be, because it is sociology, it is not psychology to speak in terms of individual. Of course, individual is not free from the impact of individual on society. As I said, Mahatma Gandhi ji, Dr. Kalam, Swami Vivekananda. We call that way, the great, that ideal leaders we are talking about. Of course, individuals' impact on society. They got influenced by the societal value system. They were custodians of the ideals or values of the society you are talking about. It is that way we are talking about, that regulating the behavior of the society at the level of individual. Of course, that it is social psychology I am addressing, not psychology. Rather, that parallelly you talk about the regulating or controlling the behavior of social groups, the communities, social institutions. So informal way you do for that, that through folkways, mores, custom, tradition. We are talking about all those things. Maybe if you violate, that will be ridicule, mockery, ostracize, criticize, violation of folkways. But violation of mores, which is, where you talk about right and wrong notion, where that you can't escape from the punishments. Right, it is that way. But it is informally, that your behavior is regulated. The social groups are regulated. Social institutions are regulated. The community is regulated, that at the closed society, rural society, traditional agrarian society, the rigid society. But informal, this is informal, but formal way of regulating society. How? Because you have to understand social values when you talk about general guidelines to an action. You show your desire, you show your preference. It will be nice not to kill, not to harm. Examples. You make it mandatory, social norm. You don't kill pigeon, you'll be punished. You'll be anti-national then. Not pigeon, I say. Of course, you might be our peacock I'm talking about. The national bird we are talking about, of course. You got it is that way endangered species. It is violation completely. So you got specific, the case specific, the strict norms you're talking about. So the general guidelines to an action is called social values. Specific guidelines to an action is called social norms. When you formalize, when you document, when you codify, it becomes law. Your law is nothing but the reflection of the social values on the part of the society. The social values, you show your desire, you show your preference. It is should be, it is must be, it is ought to be followed. When you talk about law, of course, maybe the constitution, the law, Indian Penal Code, Criminal Procedure Code, everything what you talk about, the formal mechanism through which we regulate the behavior of the society, that happens in the open society, flexible society, industrial society, urban society. You understand? So how do you do? Those who are all strictly adhering to the societal value systems, they'll be given honors. Come on, have Bharat Ratna, Padma Bhushan, Padma Vibhushan, Jawaharlal Nehru International Understanding for Peace, Disarmament, Gandhi Peace Prize Award. Why not Nobel Prize for Peace? Of course. And those who are all that completely violating the accepted norms and values of the society, they are called deviants, non-conformists. They'll be brought to the book. So for that, you got social sanction. Social sanction is a mechanism through which that you effectively regulate the behavior of the society. The social sanctions could be positive or negative. By positive social sanctions, you encourage people. By negative social sanctions, that you bring those who are all deviants, you bring them, that they are brought to the book by punishment. You understand? Regulating the behavior of the society, controlling the behavior of the society is otherwise called social control. It can be done in an informal way or formal way. Informal way, that is not our today's interaction. Formal way, constitute law. After all, law, what is that law? In its evolution, the law, it is simply reflection of the society, the societal value system. The values are part of the culture. The culture is said to be the blueprint of the society. When you talk about society, the system or network of social relationship, which is completely governed by a way of life, style of life, that's what you call the blueprint of the society, called culture. That culture has got various elements within that: knowledge, art, belief, language, the custom, tradition, the faith, everything that that as an individual you can acquire from the society by socialization. You are molded to the culture of the society through socialization, or you say brought up. So that social values, otherwise you show preference, you show the desire. That's getting that when it becomes a stricter sense, it becomes social norms. When it is formalized, documented, codified, it's called law. So how do you regulate the behavior of the society? Through formal way or informal way. Today's contention, bone of contention, is centered around a constitutional law. In what way it's bringing social change. And before that, I thought of introducing. So I think now you are very clear whether you call constitution or law separately. What are all they? They are otherwise called the formal means of the controlling society. What do you control society? Why do you regulate the behavior of the society? Then only there will be social order. Then only there will be social integration. Then only there will be social equilibrium. Then only there will be peace in the world. You don't regulate, there will be chaos, disorder, confusion, law and order deterioration mechanism. Then you call, that the situation is ripe for the imposition of Article 356. The state is not even in a position to carry out in accordance with the law. That's what you call, no? It is that way. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, that you got the point. You know what is social control? The constitution and law, they are called, that the various tools of formal, that means of, social control that you do through social sanction mechanism. A law without social sanction is ineffective. Of course, what happened in Sabarimala case, Supreme Court judgment, people did not support. There is a gap between Supreme Court judgment on the one hand, the people's mentality on the other. Otherwise, the very Supreme Court judgment is not reflecting the mood of the people. That's why they protest. There is a gap. Otherwise, people not getting elevated to the liberal views of that legal mechanism. Can argue in both cases. There is a gap. A law without social sanction, kanun, a law without social sanction is ineffective. There is John. That way, I think let me take you to the next level. Yes, that and that particular social control, what we are calling, that what happened right nowadays, you hear kangaroo courts, kap panchayat, that in Tamil it's called kata panchayat, the caste based kap panchayats, the village, what happened, that they never, that allow that intercaste marriages, and ultimately there happens honor killings. Otherwise, they will declare that particular marriage as null and void. You belong to same gotra, we declare this is null and void. But that you got various legislations on the part of India. These ruralized people may not be knowing. They simply respect recommend their own closed system rules and regulations. Of course, we have to respect. But how come that they are part of the society? They can't contradict the liberal views. The whole India is governed by the constitution. How come? So there comes ultimately, that declared when they approach, the Supreme Court recently, the judgment gave in such a way, all judgments given by the kangaroo courts, they are not formal mechanism. They are not given approval by the very society. They declare themselves. Maybe they are leaders of, that particular dominant caste in that particular locality. They come together. They assume law on their own. They declare as if they are custodian of, that local tradition. And ultimately, they impose all these, that restrictions that goes against liberal views recommended by the part of the constitution. The Hindu Succession Act, Hindu Marriage Act, where we are talking about, that the very, that intercaste marriages. And not only that, these guys are going to the, extreme, that step, of course, that honor killings. That reflection of, they are living in the past. The 21st century demands, that, the 21st century tools to take it, to the next level. But they are living with 18th century, 16th century primordial mentality, of course. That demands next version. They have to evolve. Sometimes, the court's intervention, Supreme Court's intervention, in spite of the thing, there comes, court to rescue all this, that, of course, unapproved. Otherwise, that illegal mechanisms, you call kap panchayat, or kangaroo courts, or katta panchayats in Tamil. We are talking about, that, so that regulation, that they are not backed by the legal mechanism. You have to understand. That's the issue going on. You might be aware. That in different parts, especially the very traditional, India lives in villages, you might be aware. So, that more or less the rural region, of course, they are highly vulnerable to this. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, so social control mechanism, which is not enjoying the approval that goes against the Constitution of India. Of course, that they'll be penalized. Even, I think one communist lady, of course, that Brinda Karat, I believe, that lady, that she used to mention all the judgments given by the village panchayat should be reviewed again by Supreme Courts, because they are either one form or other, they are prejudiced. That goes against, who is in the receiving end, of course, women and children. He spoke once, that some 10 years back, I read somewhere in the newspaper. You might be aware, it is that way because, that they are not free from whims and fancies or bias that goes naturally against low caste people, downtrodden people, especially Dalits, especially, the women and children, sometimes some cases against minorities too. That goes against the spirit of inclusive governance. Otherwise, that leads to social exclusion. That affects peace, law and order. Whereas German, it is ultimately we are talking about, of course, right? Very well what the relevance here. This is what your syllabus, the paper 2 of that sociology, especially that we are talking about the Indian society structure and change. We are talking about C section, social changes in India. I spoke already. The change in society is called social change. That change could be cultural, structural, or functional. Change in terms of culture, the change in way of life, style of life, maybe change in faith system, belief system, change in custom, tradition, knowledge, whatever may be, or change in value system, change in social norms. But when you talk about change in structure, the change in terms of social institutions, the change in terms of the institutions called, marriage, family, kinship, education institution, economic institutions. In Indian context, we are talking about the change in terms of functionality. That's what I said in terms of joint family system, in terms of the very family, joint family especially. Joint family, the whole way of life is lived within. Most of the thing, the whole way of life, when I say it is highly comprehensive, but most of its vital institutions completely taken over by rest of the institutions in the society. When you want to take care of young one, you got crush. When you talk, when family members have got some quarrels, the older members, that they used to invite, relatives, so that they will forget their own problems, they will come together. But today you got, counseling center, psychiatrist, go to hospital. And if you want to invest somewhere, that the elders will guide you, don't buy that property, go for this is that has got, they may guide you. But you got wealth managers today, and it's not common kitchen, the common roof, common property, everything, that it's that the individualism, privacy, the notion might be aware. So most of the vital functions on the part of the family completely taken over by rest of the institutions in the society. That's why the joint family is losing its ground. But of that, there is a statement. So it is structurally nuclear, functionally joint. People say it has broken structurally, size-wise, but functionally, for important celebrations, occasions, they again continue that tradition. That's another observation you might be aware. Sociological observation. So change in various institutions you call, that it is structure. The change in political institution, change in economic institution. Of course, from socialistic pattern to we are heading towards the public-private model. Of course, we are talking about the very capitalistic mode we are talking about. The corporate-driven politics you accuse. The developmental, even the political institution, from identity politics to developmental politics you want to focus. The change institution from monarchy to democracy even. That's change in terms of from polygamous form of marriages to monogamous. From monogamy, that we have gone to the extent of other side. What is that? Why marriage? Otherwise, if it is marriage, why it is always between men and women? Why it is not man to man? Why it is not women to women? Oh my God! LGBT community. This is a change you witness, and you are not ready to go beyond your secondary kinship. You're not ready to tolerate your distant relatives because you are focused. You have your own privacy. When we are talking about globalization, the world has become the global village, but individuals have become islands. We don't interact among ourselves. That is the statement. We witness all those, change in terms of institution, change in terms of way of life, style of life, culture, change in terms of social institutions, structural change in terms of functionality. Just now we spoke in terms of joint family. Even you speak for that particular purpose, religion. Change in terms of functionality. The role of husband is no more mere, the breadwinner. Even women take part in families' economic, the production, the equal status. They also, they get educated, they earn. Sometimes, they occupy a leadership position. You might be aware. The women empowerment we are talking about through various legislations that talk about change in roles, change in functionality on the part of women. They are no more under the clutches of feminine, masculine, the gender differences. Right? It is that way we are talking about. So it is that way. It is German. So this is what social change in society in terms of culture, structure, function, especially in Indian context we are talking about. So the visions of social change, idea of development, planning, mixed economy. It is economic institution. This is about legal institution. How the constitution, the basic law which governs the nation, Indian constitution. You might be aware, that the 26th November 1946, we gave ourselves to the constitution. When we adopted the constitution, part of constitution assembly, the drafting committee chairman, of course, Dr. Ambedkar, Baba Sahib, you might be aware. How the law should govern Indians, especially, that reflects, that Indian value system, Indian needs. Of course, we got a provision, nothing is permanent. That everything becomes obsolete over the period of time. That's why you've got amendments. And you got schedules, 12 schedules, for administrative purposes, more than 400 articles, 25 parts of the constitution. It is the lengthiest constitution, borrowed constitution. We have borrowed several features from different parts of the world. What works for us, we have customized, personalized. It's that way, that we've got, and various organs of the government, and that the separation of parts and with balance. It's not, completely rigid or completely flexible, partly rigid. You might be aware. You got federal feature, strong center with subsidiary, the state administration with autonomy also, and we got interstate development council, Niti Ayog, of course, and we got, governor role parallelly, and we got fundamental rights, fundamental duties, directive principles of state policy, and various, constitutional bodies, and various statutory bodies, even extra constitutional bodies, the governing mechanisms in such a way so as to bring, because change is permanent. How to face the challenge, how to facilitate the challenge, how to prevent some sort of, that the changes that goes against the integrational principle of the nation otherwise. All these things we are talking about, in what way we govern ourselves, right? When we assume that constitution in 19, that 50, India became republic, you might be aware, the very preamble, which is, that which gives the direction, of course, the blueprint of the constitution, what we call, prelude. It's a pre-walk, you call otherwise. The sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republican. Why? When we talk about amendments, the 42nd and 44th amendments of the constitutions are said to be major, that amendments on the part of the constitution, effectively facilitating the change. When India was at crossroads, what way we embrace the change, face the challenges, you might be aware. So it is that way we are talking about, today's interaction is centered around it. Of course, education as an instrument of social change, we'll be talking in another session. What is law? When you know very well, ball is in your court, people say. Now, ball is in your court, man, you have to do something, we say. Because all your needs, whether it is private member, public member, it will be discussed in the parliament, of course, even at the state legislature. That the bills discuss the three readings. Then after, two houses, the bicameral legislature part of parliament, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha passes, it will get the assent of the president of India. Then, the during implementation, it is called law. You might be aware, ball, bill, act, law, you call. That law, what is that law? I told you already. How social values becoming social norms. When social norms, getting formalized or documented, it is codified, it becomes law. This is what law. What do you call, the Constitution or Indian Penal Code? All, that the laws we have so far, the laws, legislations we passed hitherto to meet the needs of, various social institutions, whether it is marriage, whether it is family, whether it is education institution. Recently, new economic policy we are talking about. Earlier, Right to Education Act. Marriage, of course, that we talk about intercaste marriages. Maybe inheritance, Hindu Succession Act we are talking about. Age-at marriage we are talking about. Abolition of sati. Sharda Act, you might be aware. Widow Remarriage Act we are talking about. Whether it is protecting our women, that against domestic violence. Or even, the Protection of Civil Rights Act earlier. Today, you're talking about, the Scheduled Caste, Scheduled Tribes, the Prohibition of Discrimination Amendment Act we are talking about. Various, I'm going to list out all those, but it is not GS, it is not the constitution we are going to discuss. This is sociology, especially in Indian context. We have to give sociological flavor. That is the purpose. I'm going to introduce you, the few sociologists looking at various angles. We are going to, deal the constitution or law in such a way. We are how, in what way they are responsible for bringing change in the Indian society. The change in Indian society, it's otherwise called the community, the Indian community, you call it, in terms of culture, in terms of structure, in terms of function. That is what the focus should be more in terms of social change in India. How this constitution or law responsible for facilitating or resisting or preventing or acting as a catalyst in speeding up the very process. That is what our motto. Hope you got the point. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what syllabus recommended by UPSC, the mains examination, optional subject sociology, paper 2, especially section C of the paper 2, social changes in India. Our topic today is centered around constitution, law, social change, the change by social control, especially formal control. The formal control, formal, very formally we regulate or control the behavior of Indian society called community through constitution, law, because it's a nation, a republic nation. We got our own constitution. It is German. Yes. Yes, this is, of course, the constitution we spoke already, the basic law which governs nation, ball, will, act, law, otherwise social norm, social value, that later becomes law. formalized, codified. In what way responsible for social change? Now, the first part, let's discuss here. The Constitution of India is a living document for social change. Yeah, we were governed by, the British administration. We were British colony, you might be aware. It's through their laws. Of course, we got, that the parliamentary form of government, we got impact of British rule, no doubt at all. Various institutions, the infrastructure, bureaucracy, everything. After independence, that in what way we personalize, that the very Constitutional Assembly members also got divided after partition of India, you might be aware. So we discussed at length, what is best for governing India, Indian people, given, that illiteracy, poverty, given economic exploitation, we became recently vulnerable because of the British colonization. What are all the changes that we have to bring in such a way so that even the factor that that the majority Hindus and Muslim minorities, Christian minorities, even Sikh, Buddhists, that Jain minorities, in what way we can live amicably, the unity in diversity by adopting secularism. Of course, the secularism doesn't mean it is irreligious state. The only thing, reason is given, that more preference than religion. You have to understand. That's what the Bombay High Court judgment when the BJP MPs were about to be disqualified on the ground that they were appealing the masses using the religious plank Hindutva. You might be aware. Reason is more than religion. Secularism doesn't mean that, irreligious state. Got the idea? We don't have official religion, but of course, religion got reduced to the personal affairs of the nation. At the same time, Indian secularism is totally different, which has got the version. We are also, protecting minority religions through various legal mechanisms. You might be aware. It's that way we personalized, we customized. That is a change. The Constitution of India, which has got amendment, Article 368, what you're talking about, it is another testament. It is a living document for change. Nothing is permanent in the world. Nothing is absolutely correct. Nothing is absolutely wrong. What is right in one place, it becomes wrong in another place. What is right in one point of time becomes wrong in another point of time. For every thesis, you got antithesis, then synthesis. That is German. Let's be open-minded. When that is the scenario, we're talking about all these things, right? It is German, of course. It is a living document, no doubt. It is, which has got important role. That's what I'm speaking in terms of various. It is not our duty is not to discuss in terms of GS constitution mechanism. In what way they are responsible, in what way they brought changes in Indian society, culturally, structurally, functionally. I keep on emphasizing this point. Yes. So the diverse. Because the unity in diversity, as I said, people speaking different languages, of different castes, different communities, different regions, different ethnicity, different religions, that we are all living together. Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. Of course, we call cultural pluralism, a melting pot. The unity in diversity, it is a core principle of Indian society. You might be aware. So, that diverse and traditional society in India is, that how their wishes, formalized through the constitution, so that this particular fabric is maintained. Otherwise, given the fact I said multiple cleavages, that differences on the part of the society in terms of caste, the class, the widening social inequality on economic lines, of course, gender differences, the low status of women, that how the superstition, we gone to the extent of, sati, self-immolation practice, might be aware. And also, the regional differences we are talking about in terms of topography and associated, ethnicity, nativity, son of the soil theory, and ethnicity, race plus culture we are talking about. It's not only biological differences, even social differences are attributed with that, and also the various religions. We know, given that fact, how we, preserve that unity and diversity through constitution. And also, that it reflects the liberal democracy. When justice, because from French Revolution we copied liberty, equality, fraternity. The rule of law, Article 14, you talk about equality before law, equality of law, equality before law. We are talking about everything, that may be fundamental rights 12 to 35. We enforce that way. It's a great tool. The hands of common men, aggrieved people can approach. You might be aware, that the Supreme Court and High Court, Article 32, talking about heart and soul of the Constitution, key to constitutional remedies. We are talking about the liberal democracy. You got your own fundamental rights. At the same time, you should not forget you got fundamental duties. The fundamental rights you can exercise. It is not at the cost of societal order, social order. You got reasonable restrictions, ladies and gentlemen. Anything that goes against law and order mechanism will never be tolerated. You might be aware. It is that way. Fundamental rights with the reasonable restrictions clause. The fundamental rights also should be balanced by fundamental duties. Without discharging your duties, you can never enforce your rights. Of course, you got jurisdiction. That's totally different scenario. Yes. So it's a great tool in the hands of aggrieved people. When you feel your fundamental rights are encroached upon, you can. That shows so how the Constitution, that preserving your fundamental freedom, the freedom of expression, speech. We're talking about all those, the right to privacy, everything. Even recent Supreme Court judgments on that. So all irrationalities, that it should be, that rational, it should be logic based, rationalization based. It is not a primordial, that otherwise the very past practices we are talking about, superstitious practices. There should be a proof. There should be a logical connectivity. There should be a cause and effect. It should be based on rationalization, scientific temperament. Of course, that the various dogmas, biases, stereotypes, hegemony, the dominance, we never tolerate. They have been completely, even slavery has been abolished. All discrimination, in all forms, got abolished. You might be aware, whatever it may be. Even that's why we talk about women empowerment, or even Article 17, untouchability, abolition of untouchability. The child labor, of course, that it's a shame on the child without childhood. Shame on our nation. You might be aware. We are talking about how keen we are through 1986 through various recent mechanisms and amendments. We are talking about even Article 23, 24. How minorities should be protected, that so it is that way, they should not feel insecure. That's why you got fundamental rights, 29, 30, well. So the law attacks this old dysfunction, the majoritarian tendency, or maybe or son of the soil theory, that maybe old dysfunctional social institutions, maybe caste, the rigidity on the part of any religion or region or language, both in rural and urban areas. There comes, the crucial role played by the liberal views, the liberal laws, the constitution, the basic law that governs Indian society. You might be aware, that we are talking about, it is that way. So, that it is that way. So how, when the women are given opportunity, they can change the world. We are talking about, we emphasize, women empowerment, women education. Right. The Constitution of India guarantees equality of status, irrespective. Article 14 talking about equality of status, but Article 15 prohibiting all those discriminations also. But Article 16 within bracket 4 or 15 within bracket 4, you might be aware, nothing in this article shall prevent a state or a central government from providing special provision for weaker section and minorities. You got protective discrimination also. Because hitherto people got oppressed and suppressed. They should reach a particular level playing field. It is not equality alone. Equity, you have to understand their unique problems. They should be brought to this level. There should be a level playing field. Equality of opportunities. The reservation we are talking about, it is that way. So the people, that is the correctional measures. Positive discrimination, protective discrimination. It is not only that. Article 45, 275, 164, 338, 340, 342, 5th schedule, 6th schedule. Why? It is not centralized administration we have. Through local self-government, we got, Panchayat Raj system, Balwant Rai Mehta committee. Taking the democracy to the grassroots level, local self-government, you call Panchayat Raj institution. That the very administration at the village level, block level, that at the very district level, we speak. 73rd, 74th constitutional amendments giving, the constitutional status to that, you might be aware. Backed by funding, 1/3 of reservation. Some states gone beyond that level. 50% reservation for women, 60% reservation for women. You might be aware. So it is that way. And also the very guidelines to the government, but it is non-justiciable. It's not like fundamental rights, the very directive principles of state policy I'm talking about. They guide the governments, directions to the government, where you talk about uniform civil code also. The Khadi village-based industries should be protected. You might be aware, we are talking about, that how, that the cow should be protected, part of that. It is not a cow vigilante we are talking about. You might be aware, don't fall machination to all those, Western measures. Recently, the Jallikattu protest also happened to protect our own native breed, the A2. In what way they can, that they bring organic farming. So, unfortunately, hitherto India was, that giving subsidy to, that the beef export. Recently, they stopped, fortunately. They can be utilized in such, they can bring, a greatest revolution in agriculture. If all our, local breeds are employed in such a way, there comes our role. We are talking about all this, giving direction. Directive principles of state policy. You might be able giving directions, guiding the government, where we are talking about, that all variations, discrepancies or minimalization of those inequalities, and also providing positive discrimination. The theory of separation of are part of it. Uniform civil code part of it. So that it is that way you can effect a lot of changes on the part of Indian society. Maybe custom bound society, tradition bound society. How through law, the constitution, through the amendments, or through Supreme Court judgments, or recommendations of commissions, or through legislation. In what way you can bring change? A law becomes instrument of social change. Because people, the subjects, they have to strictly abide by. They have to respect the constitution. It is, after all, law, that passed by our own, the legislature, our own representatives. It is representative democracy that we have to strictly abide by. That comes our responsibility. I spoke about fundamental rights. What about fundamental duties? See, the 11th duty, there was 11th duty which has been added. It is a duty of every, that a parent to educate his or her own son or daughter. Constitution of India, which says it is your duty to take care of your kids, to educate especially. Of course, you got, right to education act, free and compulsory education or education for all. That's totally different scenario you're talking about. It is not only talking about fundamental rights. What about your fundamental duties? Indru புறத்தல் எந்தை கடனே சான்றோனாக்குதல் தந்தைக்கு கடனே, which is part of Tamil literature I'm talking about. Mother will give birth to the kids. Of course, kid one or two child now. Two child now. That we two hours too. Of course, you speak that way. சான்றோன் ஆக்குதல் தந்தைக்கு கடனே. It's the duty of the father to make him scholastic, well-educated person. But it is part of our culture, part of Tamil literature I'm talking about, which is recently formalized, documented, became 11th duty of Indian Constitution. You understand? Na? Something which is already part of culture, which is getting formalized, becoming law. Do you understand connectivity now? It was once, the previous year question on the part of mains GS also. Legitimate is that way we are talking about. Of course, we talk about fundamental rights, fundamental duties, directive principles of state policy, and that that it is that way. So, and not only that, the preamble and DPSP, directive principles of state policy, that both together they are governed by social values. Even in the preamble, we the people of India having solemnly resolved, that to constitute India, that sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, justice, liberty, equality, all. It is the value system, that you uphold through the preamble. It is that way, that the prelude we are talking about, it is guiding light for the public policy. Because, that it has been recognized through Kashwananda Bharati Act, the preamble, which is part and parcel of, that the constitution, which is part of the basic structure. Though Berubari, a case, did not accept that, but Kashwananda Bharati Act, that the case recognized this, 1973. You might be aware. Part of the basic structure of Indian Constitution. Anything that violates, of course, while making public policy, you get, the directions, guidance through the preamble, blueprint of the Constitution, or directive principles of state policy, upholding the value system on the part of Indian society, the age-old value system, part of Indian culture, the community, India. And also, that the legislation, whenever you want to make legislation, you are directed, you are governed by these principles. You have to understand, that whether it is, the change may be cultural, the facet of the society, or structural facet of the society, the change in terms of, functionality, maybe. The importance of the law and the constitution, of course, that in what way protect the downtrodden, oppressed, suppressed section, even Dalits, we call, that other depressed section, you call women, poor, tribal people. Why? That special people. Recently, there was a judgment by the Supreme Court, that special people, differently able people, that should get the same provisions as SC/ST people are availing in India. That's been recently the judgment passed, understanding their plight, right? And also the triple talaq when it comes to that minorities, you might be aware. Why even minority institutions should not take it for granted. Parallelly, they have to excel in terms of meritocracy also, without compromising excellence. There came another Supreme Court judgment. Everything what we are talking about, it's that way that affects change. And also, when we talk about, the ban on untouchability, of course, that a social distance, social disability imposed on, the downtrodden people, the Article 17, through which, Mahatma Gandhi adopted reformist path, but whereas Dr. Ambedkar adopted reactionary and revolutionary path. And within this caste system, we can never get, that the justice, that's why he embraced Buddhism, through his followers, you might be aware. He, according to him, that's egalitarian and indigenous. We discussed already in previous session also. Though Gandhi tried in so many ways, that's a shame on the Hinduism, shame on Indian society. That's according to Mahatma Gandhi. Of course, through constitution, we uphold, that we upheld, that the very value system, we know that very Mahatma Gandhi ji stood for. Article 17, and also offences, the people violating Untouchability Offences Act 1955, even scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, the prohibition of discrimination, and the amendments, recently done, you might be aware. Why? Do you understand? It is not, we are not living in the past. The people got exposed to the modern liberal values. That the change at the international state system, the global fora, and the people got exposed. But our laws, should not become archaic or outdated or obsolete laws. Accordingly, we reform. We threw away around, that some, we heard around, that some 1,200, that laws, outdated laws thrown away. Even the current dispensation, political dispensation, we're talking about reform, perform, transform. It is that way. And addressing the basic needs, through Food Security Act and Arabi's, 100 days employment scheme, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, and right to education, free and compulsory education or education for all, and democratization of information, making, people aware of the rules and regulation, policy, programs, governance mechanism, schemes, right to information act, thanks to Parivartan movement, well. It is that way, addressing the basic needs of the people, making people aware, dissemination of information, or through legal mechanism, we affect change in the Indian society. So that affects individual, that influences individual, influences the social groups, family, and influences various social institutions, and changes may be structural. That's what I'm talking about. It could be the change, it begins with change at the individual, then social group, then through social institution, as I said, marriage, family, kinship, education institution, economic institution, political institution, religious institution. And also, that finally, this change, what you're talking about, that this various, through constitution and law, you bring changes in all these things. The changes could be, as I spoke already, cultural, structural, functional. That's what Indian society, change in three aspects. How do we facilitate? How do we, prevent? How do we act as a catalyst in speeding up the change? How do we prevent sometimes? To regulate the behavior of the society through constitution, through law, which is said to be the formal way of regulating the behavior of the society, the formal mechanism. Then only there will be social order, then only there will be order in the society, order in the nation, then only there will be prosperity in the nation or economic development. Then only you can meet all those basic, the needs of the people we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, that way, let me take you to the next level. What is the point? Progressive legislations. So various, the legislations, whether it is, as I said, going against triple talaq, even, that the very recently, the very Jammu Kashmir people, of course, they've got separate history. The recent abrogation of Article 370, you might be aware. The one nation, that one constitution today we are talking about, of course, it's not free from controversies, you might be aware. The very Jammu Kashmir has been restructured in such a way, you might be aware. Now they've got privilege. You can, earlier, you can buy land anywhere from any part of India except Jammu Kashmir. And also Jammu Kashmir people, it's not possible for you. Now you can buy. They can also come out. You can't marry, that you can't choose your spouse from Jammu Kashmir region. Now all restrictions gone. From change perspective, I'm talking about how they view change. That's totally different scenario. That's not our bone of contention here. So those progressive legislations restricting the people of Jammu Kashmir or restricting the mainland people, from entering or, the purchasing something in Jammu Kashmir, the progressive legislation. Otherwise making them to participate in the mainstream. It is opening up of the opportunities at the mainstream society to the Jammu Kashmir hitherto, that they were governed by, the separate autonomous, separate constitution. You might be aware, Article 370. that has been abrogated recently, you might be aware. So aim at improving the quality of life and delivering social change. Do you see now change for, that today the procession happened? How protecting, that Kashmiri Pandit Hindu minorities in Jammu Kashmir parallelly? And what about Buddhist minorities there? The Ladakh region. Hitherto, you spoke about only, that Jammu Kashmir, only, that militancy, all those stuff. What about minorities there? All these things we are talking about. So the various laws, provisions, that for the sections, that special needs, we are talking about, we enunciated, we passed law, various provisions to address the various problems, equity in different parts of India. That facilitated, that brought, that prevented, that speeded up the very process of the social change we are talking about, and also protection of women from domestic, it is women empowerment, otherwise they get freedom. They are protected from the, that all those, that oppression, suppression, discrimination, violence, and also, but anti-dowry, a failure, you might be aware. Even, guys clearing, IAS recently demanding some, are you aware? Girls are sold in the market, demanding, indirectly demanding. Otherwise, people are in competition with, that I'll give you 10 crores, 20 crores, with 300 acres of land, all corrupt money. How come? The guy is selling himself in the market. It is happening. Recently, people cleared IAS, IPS, I hear stories. If the girl is not given, that how she will be treated at the home. Come on, the domestic violence. Otherwise, divorcing. That's what will happen. It is girls are sold in the market. Otherwise, boy is ready to, that offer his tender. When it is happening at the level of, that educated people, just think about, that uneducated or tradition bound society. Of course, we are talking about. So it is for some other reason. So anti-dowry, that it's a failure we are talking about. It is lack of political will. Lack of will on the part of people also. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. So the scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers, that recognition of Forest Act 2006, that it is this act, which recognize the tribal people as part and parcel of the society, part and parcel of the forest. They are considered as part of the forest. All, that minor forest produce, they've got access towards them. We're talking about. No encroachment can happen there. It is all these things, that protecting people, the change. Hitherto they were oppressed, suppressed. Now you give, asylum, protection. It's that way, this is a change on the part of, that hitherto oppressed, suppressed, that encroached community we are talking about. The native indigenous people. Of course, the protection of children, POCSO, we are calling protection of children from Sexual Offences Act. We hear a lot. How the children are abused. More than strangers, that by very familiar people we are talking about, that in what way kids are protected we are talking about, especially the girl children we are talking about. That way, the child pornography, we very recently Supreme Court judgment on that, and associated controversies, all this, that the change that brings, that it's all through law we try to bring changes on the part of, that the mindset of the people. The other way around. After law is the reflection of the mindset of the people. Now, situation gone other way around. Through law, you effect changes. Otherwise, they are afraid of, the fear factor, violation of punishment. Violation will invite punishment. Because of that, they strictly adhere to. So, the rights of persons with disabilities act we are talking about. Recently, Supreme Court judgment also I mentioned in what way we protect them. 3% of reservation for visually, challenged people. Are you aware? The IAS itself. It is that way we are talking about, through law, through constitution, protective discrimination, positive discrimination, what way we are protecting them. So where hitherto we spoke about, that understanding, that how the formal mechanism of social control, either constitution or law, responsible for change in Indian society. Structurally, culturally, functionally, we are talking about. Of course, that you have to understand, without bringing sociological flavor, it becomes, general studies portion, you might be aware. So this is according to, recently in May, the very renowned sociologist who wrote the book Modernization of Indian Tradition, you might be aware, Yogendra Singh, that well known, recently no more, in the month of, May, especially this Yogendra Singh, of course, gentleman, a renowned sociologist in India, you might be aware. He said the law plays an important role in bringing or preventing social change. That he took four paths, actually, four paths, especially how the law is responsible for bringing change in Indian society. First one, law legitimizing social change. That it backs, it gives statutory status. Especially what happened, right? That Gandhi said, that untouchability, that it's a shame on Indian society. Only caste consciousness, that thrown out, it is possible. He felt very bad, and he expected people to go for interdining, that intercaste marriages and all. So, but he said, but we gave through Constitution, Article 17, of course, after untouchability, several untouchability movements happen in India. You might be aware. The constitutional, the provisions brought in Article 17, clear-cut example for that. And also scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, that the prohibition of discrimination and amendment acts we are talking about. We legitimize the change by backing up, with statute. It becomes authority. It enjoys authority now. So law, and also, the initiator of, the social change. In another tone, what is that? Of course, Right to Education Act. We talk about, that children, that up to 14 years, that old should be given free and compulsory education. Right to Education Act. Even 25% of reservation, the private, that education also, education institution also should be allotted, especially for backward and downtrodden people. You might be aware. So the free and universal education. It is law here, initiator, a pioneer, beginner, a persuader. You talk about, the law to speed up acts as a catalyst to speed up the social change. How? Because age at marriage. You reduce because of that, the child marriages, that got reduced. You might be aware. The child marriages happen in India got decreased. Especially the Brahmin community, they resorted to a lot of child marriages. Of course, that it's law responsible for speeding up that particular social change, that changed their mindset. They are afraid of law. Age at marriages by modernizing influence, new ideas, because they physically, mentally, they should be qualified enough. Otherwise, they'll be continually forced to depend on male counterpart. They will become parasites. That's why that you continue the tradition, low status of women. When they are educated, economic independence, they can stand on their own. They can take the family to the next level, organization to the next level. No schemes, policies on the part of the government will succeed without involvement of women. Very clear-cut example, of course, self-help groups, microfinance, you might be aware, where we emphasize role of women education. It is that way, speed up the social change. That begins with even abolition of, that Sati, the Sharda Act, Widow Remarriage Act, and Domestic Violence Act we are talking about. Even for Muslim women, Triple Talaq Act. We talk about a lot of things, in what way the change mindset, about the very women. Otherwise, women, get emancipation, liberation from the clutches of, that the primordial practices. Right? They feel empowered. Does that? So law also prevents, that negative social change. Anti-narcotics law, of course, that substance, that abuse, you might be aware. And also, preconception and prenatal diagnostic tests, that whether it is girl or female, that people they can't violate law in India. They go to Singapore and ultimately they find whether it is boy or girl when they are conceived. You might be aware, because girl children are considered as a burden. That boy as asset. I think Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana, Dhanlakshmi, so many, Beti Badao, Beti Bachao, Beti Badhao, you might be aware. So many schemes, that in spite of that, that mindset, of course, through that act, the license of that particular scanning center, even doctor will be cancelled, forfeited, you might be aware. Through law, we bring social change. We change the mindset of the people. We change social institution. We change attitude, behavior of the social groups. Culturally, structurally, functionally. Do you understand? It is that way. This is according to Yogendra Singh. He spoke about it. Of course, not only that, we are talking about how Marxists would have seen, the constitution. It's according to Marxists, you might be aware. Infrastructure shapes superstructure. Those who are very strong in economic institution, they are capable of influencing rest of the institutions in the society. He spoke, infrastructure shapes superstructure. Your position in economic institution, you are capable of influencing accordingly political institution or whatever may be, legal institution, whatever may be. So that it reflecting the whims and fancies of that economic elites. So ruling class ideology, they decide what sort of government should be there. It is what. So law as a part of larger ideological framework. The ideology, of course, infrastructure shapes superstructure. That it is that way framework of the state working on behalf of what is that? Dominant groups, elites in a society. It is the ruling class ideology. It is a reflection of that economic stronghold. That's what you today you call that lobby, corporate driven politics. That so law or constitution becomes additional tools the hands of that exploiters who want to exploit the have-nots more. That's according to Marxists. That you might be aware conflict school of tradition and other sociologists Upendra Bakshi and Govind Mishra, they also spoke on this. What is that? Majority of the people in India who do not have access to the justice delivery system, maybe lack of awareness, maybe that their illiteracy, or they couldn't come out of the vicious circle of poverty, and ultimately what happens, right? It compromises the law we're talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, not only that, and also that renowned sociologist that Andre Bittel, who did case studies Tripuram in Tanjore village, you might be aware, and role of not only caste, not only caste, class and power in interactive play, he recognized, you might be aware, and he says the constitution may define direction in which the government should move, because after all the constitution, the basic law that governs any nation. What are all the changes the nation that the things that's getting formalized, our social norms, social values, then you talk about law. Formalized or documented or codified social norms becoming law or constitution. That defines direction through preamble. That is the blueprint of constitution. We direct sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic, justice, liberty, equality. That's clear-cut blueprint, which is part of the basic structure of the constitution, according to Keshavananda Bharati Act. You might be aware. Keshavananda Bharati case you're talking about. So it is in which government should, it's people through their actions. Accordingly, when you got that the governments, of course, the very constitution in such a way, constitution is supreme. The Supreme Court there to interpret that as per constitution. The executive simply implement as per the constitution. You might be. After all, this constitution we gave ourselves on November 26, the 1946. Of course, 49. Ultimately, the 1950, we said, India became republic by Jan 26. That by accepting the constitution, you might be aware. We strictly abide by what's there in the constitution. So what happened? Even the ideology getting influenced. So that ultimately determines the effectiveness of the law. The constitution may define the direction in which the government should move. Of course, that's clear cut through directive principles of state policy or through preamble. And it's people through their action. You got fundamental freedom. At the same time, you got fundamental duty. You got fundamental freedom. At the same time, you got reasonable restriction. And also ideology, whatever may be the legislation, scheme, policy, program on the part of the ruling dispensation that can never contradict the basic structure of the constitution. Otherwise, it could be declared null and void. That talks about effectiveness on the part of the law. And also, that you talk about the very willpower of the people, the lack of willpower of the people and lack of political will also. Even, that local self-government, we implemented 1/3 of reservation. What about, that Lokpal? The parliament 1/3 of reservation, what happened? So even the very failure of anti-dowry law, we can talk, because that in most of that violations by elite, political elite, bureaucratic elite, economic elite, they got backing ultimately. Lack of political will, and also people, the willpower of the lack of willpower of the people. Otherwise, that demands willpower on the part of the people. Yatha praja tata sanstan. Yatha praja tata raja. It's not blaming the system. It's not blaming our leaders. They are part of the society. You only send them after getting 1,000 rupees per vote. Freebie politics. Identity politics. How come? They are from you. You chose them. You don't repent later. Think before you ink. It is that we are talking about. So that demands willpower on the part of the people. Yatha praja tata raja. Yatha praja tata sanstan. They're talking about it. So, and also lack of political will on the part of the leaders, because they want to survive through corrupt measures, identity politics, influencing voting behavior of the masses, or influencing voting behavior of the the very voters, the masses. Otherwise, identity politics, afraid of losing vote bank politics. All those steps we are talking about. So effective implementation and widespread awareness is necessary. So it's not a policy paralysis of implementation. There should be letter and spirit implementation. Also, there should be awareness on the part of the people should come forward, and also there should be organized attempt on the part of the government to disseminate, thanks to Right Information Act, but various measures should be that in such a way, so that the change happens, that you understand what I'm talking about, that I could connect. What is the point? The various sociologists, I think, recall, of course, we are talking about here Yogendra Singh, and who spoke about law or social change in various ways. Marxist, Upendra Bakshi, Govind Mishra, and Patel. What is, that this is about change in Indian society in terms of culture. When you talk about change in Indian society, of course, the cultural change, maybe Sanskritization, Westernization, as said by M.N. Srinivas. Maybe modernization. The modernization, the change in terms of various social institutions happen in India. It's because of 150 years of British rule in India. The Westernization, you might be aware. The Westernization also India tasted because of aping the West, aping the European style, the Western countries. That happened because of British administration. The change in society because of the cultural change when you address Sanskritization, Westernization. When you talk about the change in terms of structure, that's through modernization. The change in terms of functionality, you can discuss how the joint family system, the functionality change, how the role of women underwent phenomenal change, how the role of, religion, various social institutions. For that sake, you can take into account, you might be aware, how the constitution, law, so that whether it is individual, that's what I said, that whether it is individual or social groups affecting family, or individual affecting various social institutions, how the very constitution or law through which we effected changes here, that ultimately brought changes in Indian society, culturally, structurally, functionally. Got the idea, ladies and gentlemen? And also with sociological flavor. Of course, Yogendra Singh, Marxist, and Bakshi, and also Andre Betel, we spoke. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's fantastic. I think, that, and I think I added value. Hope, and, you would have got any questions meanwhile. Right, you can type your questions, probably, I don't know how many questions. Right, you can also reach me through Telegram channel. Of course, when it comes to that the resources, you can go for in all those things. You use your general studies backup, your constitutional knowledge, not as GS, but sociological flavor. That we are talking about ignore materials, NCRT. Otherwise, materials what we are recommending more than sufficient. Ladies and gentlemen, what materials I am recommending, you please take into account. We refer different sources. You please, after this, you go back and watch from slide by slide and take notes parallelly if you want it, and that you can employ in this that main sets up. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it is right time. That hope I would have added value in your understanding. I'm sorry I've taken your valuable time in the festival season also, but I can't shy away from my responsibility. As I told you, you got fundamental right, you got right to celebrate, as well as that you got fundamental duty. You are civil service aspirant first. You are a leader. You're working on a goal. Don't forget that. That should be the focus. Ladies and gentlemen, I think thanks for spending that valuable 1 hour plus with me. Of course, please use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount. Ladies and gentlemen, let's meet tomorrow same time 6 o'clock with another topic. And thanks for appreciating your participation. This is Success Sampath, the signing off from you. Very good night. Thank you, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.